So this summer, our theme, as we've been worshiping together, has been cultivate. And we've been exploring all of the ways that the natural world around us reflects to us the goodness of God, the things that we can take from the world to help us grow in our faith, to grow spiritually. But alongside that comes the call to care for the world. In the passage in Isaiah that we've been sitting with during the month of August, there is this line in there where the prophet says, "So that you may live." And within that is this assumption that what is good for the world, because all of the imagery is about a land producing fruit, water to drink, wine and milk without cost, trees that are flourishing. The assumption behind the prophet's words is that when we take care of the world, when the world is healthy, then we are healthy. That taking care of the world is a way that we take care of ourselves, that we are all part of this interconnected, beautiful creation that God has given us. And yet we all know that we humans sometimes don't always realize that we can take advantage of the world. We can take it for granted. We can exploit it and dominate it, thinking it's for our ease when we're actually working not only for the world's destruction, but for ours also. And one step in really learning to care for the earth is learning to love the world, or remembering to love the world. I'm struck by how easy that is for kids to just take in with wonder and joy all of the intricacies of the world around us. And yet as we get older, sometimes we forget that. And we do this not only just thinking of the world in its totality as some large, kind of almost abstract thing, but when we can really get down to particularity of learning to love the specific things in the world. This flower here, that tree there, or even some of the more icky things, like bugs. So today, we wanted to talk about that, and we felt there was no one better to bring that message than Eli Gaff. And I'm going to tell you why. Eli has been the climate justice intern through a grant we received through the United Church of Christ over at First Congregational this summer, and has been working with us in our garden and in Sunday school, and next week in our Nature and Neighbors Kids Week. But I've known Eli since he was a teenager in youth group. For those of you who don't know, I first came to First Congregational not as the pastor, but as the youth minister when my family and I relocated to the area. And Eli, I don't know if you remember this, but one of my first memories of you was an argument over whether or not an acorn is edible. So it was in the middle of COVID, and so we couldn't really gather inside, and so we planned several youth group outings out at Blue Hills to go on hikes and things like that, and I love doing that. So it was kind of right up my alley. And I quickly found out that Eli loved it as well, though Eli loved some specific parts of that way more than I ever even considered. So we were finishing up our hike at Blue Hills, and we were waiting around for parents to pick the kids up, and I noticed that Eli had some acorns around, and comes up and says, "Archie, what do you think about eating this acorn?" And I'm like, no. Like, first of all, I don't think it would taste very good. And second, I don't know whether you actually are supposed to eat acorns as a human. And, the number one thing a youth minister wants to do is to make sure everyone ends the youth experience alive. Well, Eli did his research. He carried the acorn home, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you learned is that if you cook the acorn in some form or fashion, it is edible, but you should definitely not eat it raw. Is that right? So that was my introduction to Eli. Second story is I took the kids canoeing on the Charles River. We rented canoes and kayaks. It was a great time. It was a way to be outside and a beautiful place. Now, but I've heard all of the stories about how, well, the Charles is not necessarily the cleanest river in the world, so we're kind of an hour into our canoe trip, and Eli says, "Hey, RJ, I'm going to jump out of the canoe and swim." And I said, again, thinking the number one goal is to get everybody home alive. I'm thinking, no, let's not do that. And then Eli asked this question. It wasn't like as a kind of a moody teenager the question. It was an honest, curious question. And it stayed with me. You said, why? Why don't you want me in the water? And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, well, can you swim? And Eli was like, yeah, and I also have a life jacket on. And I couldn't think of a good reason why. So I said, sure, jump in. And before you know it, everybody was in the water. And everybody lived. So I learned two things about Eli, and I think the two go together. Eli pays attention to the parts of the world that many people don't. I had never stopped to even consider whether or not I could eat an acorn. And Eli goes through life with this amazing curiosity, not just accepting what has been told without questioning it. And I actually think those two traits, the ability to pay attention to something as simple as an acorn or a bug, and approaching the world and everything in it in life with such a curiosity, are two of the most important traits when it comes to caring for the world and caring for each other. Then I wonder what kind of world we would live in if all of us approached the world around us with curiosity and wonder. And I think Eli does that every day. So Eli, come and talk to us about bugs.
Bugs are the key to understanding our purpose. When I was a kid, another boy I grew up with from the congregation found a spider in the church. We were two very strong-willed elementary schoolers with different opinions on how to deal with the little arachnid we had just found. I wanted to put it outside, and he wanted to squish it. After a brief argument that nearly devolved into us wrestling just outside of the Great Hall, I tearily deposited a half-squished spider outside. I don't blame my friend for wanting to kill the spider. If it had been a house centipede instead, I might have done the same thing. I've always loved bugs. As a child, I remember saving spiders from the sanctuary and depositing them gently in the holly bushes outside. I would move rocks to look for pill bugs, scour the pavement for worms when it rained, gather ants in my cupped hands, and proudly show off every beetle I could find. I remember watching fluffy bumblebees covered in pollen explore my mother's garden, and I remember catching fireflies with my cousins. Even as an adult, I stopped to notice the grasshopper and wasp fighting on the sidewalk, or the dead cicada perfectly preserved at the base of a tree. I've always loved bugs. Out of all of God's creations, bugs can be difficult to love. They are part of the ecosystem and play an important role in the food chain, but many bugs we just consider pests. Mosquitoes, ticks, earwigs. In addition to this, a lot of people find bugs to be creepy and gross. I completely understand. I do love most bugs, but my weakness is house centipedes. I am so freaked out by house centipedes. I have immediately enlisted my dad's help whenever I see one outside of our basement. I have woken him up in the middle of the night because of a singular house centipede in my room. I am horrified by house centipedes. I remember I opened a kitchen drawer earlier this summer to grab a cup, and I saw a little centipede wriggling in a clear plastic glass. The thing that scares me most about house centipedes is that their legs are very long and very thin compared to their body, and if you squish a house centipede, they just burst with their little hair-like legs flying everywhere. Bugs are scary. If you are scared of bugs in any capacity, from centipedes to spiders to butterflies, I understand. Humans are scared of bugs because they are significantly different from us, because they are sometimes dangerous, being venomous or carrying disease. Bugs indicate when something has gone rotten or is beginning to decay. Certain varieties of bugs sting, bite, or burrow. It is normal to be scared of them. But just because something is scary does not mean that it is bad. When we as humans see something or someone who is significantly different from us, or that we do not understand, often our first instinct is to be afraid. When the Virgin Mary saw the angel Gabriel at Nazareth, she was afraid because Gabriel was so different from her, and because she did not understand. It is normal to be afraid. God frequently calls upon us to do scary things and to trust him. Just because something is frightening does not mean that it is bad. We have to take a step farther past our initial fear in order to see the inherent good. Bugs are scary, but they are also vital to our environment, the amazing world that God created. God created insects, arachnids, and myriapods with a purpose. They enable growth, sustain life, and return us to the earth. They enable growth by being pollinators. Every plant, every crop we cultivate as food or as resources needs the gentle touch of a bug to flourish. Bees, beetles, butterflies, wasps, and moths. The vast majority of the food we eat needs to be pollinated or needs to consume something that is pollinated. You were able to drink coffee this morning because a bug pollinated the coffee plant. You are able to sit on wooden pews because the tree they came from was pollinated. God created bugs to enable the growth of the earth's many plants. Everything we do is connected to the work of bugs. In addition to this, bugs sustain life. In the ecosystem, they are the food source for larger animals. Reptiles, mammals, birds, and amphibians all require bugs for nutrients. God created bugs not only to enable the growth of his flora, but as sustenance for his fauna as well. Their purpose is to sustain life, and when that life ends, their purpose is to return it to the earth. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return. Ecclesiastes 3:20. Bugs are decomposers. God made them with the purpose of returning us to him. When life ends, bugs return us to the earth. Beetles, ants, earthworms, slugs, flies, and their larvae break down dead animals and plants to give the soil the nutrients it needs to create life once again. Our bodies will be broken down so that we can return to the Creator. God gave bugs a purpose. What purpose did he give us? I believe that our purpose is to take care of the earth. We all have our individual callings to teach, to create, to share our joy and our passion with our communities. What unites us is our duty to care. In the NIV translation, Genesis 1:28 says, God blesses them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. By using the word subdue, this translation paints the earth as something that people have to control with force. The earth is there to serve us. Humans are the rulers in the hierarchy of living creatures. The problem with this is that when we place ourselves above the rest of creation, we no longer hold ourselves and each other accountable for how we treat the rest of God's world. If it is our job to subdue the earth, it does not matter how we treat it. It does not matter what happens to the water, to the air, and the land, as long as the earth is subdued so that people can rule it. As long as people view the earth as something that needs to be subdued, we will continue to pollute and destroy our home. Modern translations of the Bible, such as the Inclusive Bible, translate this verse differently. In this translation, subdue is replaced with be stewards of, and rule over is replaced with be responsible for. These words change the context in which we view the earth. Whereas subdue implies taking forceful control over, be stewards of implies taking care of something that does not belong to us. Our purpose is not to subdue God's creation and make them our own, but to be stewards of them. Our purpose is not to rule over, instead it is to take responsibility for. We are not meant to be rulers imposing our will on creation. We are meant to be caretakers, honoring everything God has made. I think bugs are beautiful. I would like to invite you all to consider bugs for a moment with wonder, awe, appreciation, and beauty. Imagine the shiny reflective shell of a beetle, the delicate, intricate patterns of a spider web, even the gentle, fluffy legs of a house centipede. Every dragonfly, moth, ladybug, and horsefly has complex and elegant wings. The patterns are just as beautiful and skillfully crafted as the spiraling core of a sunflower or the branching pattern of needles on a pine tree. Greet every insect, myriapod, and arachnid with wonder and awe. Not just pretty butterflies lounging in a garden or cute, fluffy bumblebees diligently pressing kisses into flowers, but the spiders, cockroaches, wasps, mosquitoes, and ticks of the world as well. Look at a cockroach's tough exoskeleton and appreciate how durable and resilient it is. Look at a mosquito's proboscis and antenna and see how sophisticated it is. Look at a tick, its chubby little body and cute little legs, and see how beautiful it is. When we are able to see the beauty in our least favorite of God's creations, the very bottom of our perceived hierarchy, we are able to see the beauty in each and every one of God's creations. We are able to see the beauty in every person, every plant, every animal, and every environment. There is beauty in everything. Being beautiful is not conditional. The only prerequisite is to exist. If you are here, you are beautiful. People who see themselves as unconditionally beautiful find it easier to care for their physical, mental, and spiritual health. It is easier to care for your brain, your body, and your soul when you accept that you are unconditionally worthy and beautiful of love, unconditionally beautiful and worthy of love. When we see the inherent beauty of creation, we start to understand a role as caretakers, as stewards of the earth. We find it easier to greet the world with love. When you love something, you care for it. When we love something, we care for it and protect it. The earth is our Eden. We are the gardeners meant to tend it. Instead, we've been neglecting it. The world is beautiful, and we are God's good creations. We have to step up and protect the gorgeous planet made in His image. We can start simply by changing the way we view bugs.